Welcome back to Watch Mode. Okay, I'm not strong enough to commit to this bit. This year, I decided I would do a top 5 list so I don't have any padding like I did last year. But as a result of that, a lot of great games didn't make the cut. So I'm going to start this video with... These are basically just anything that I played this year and liked, but either shouldn't be on the list because it's not quite in my top 5, or shouldn't be on the list because it's not a full game. You know, we got Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Shadow of the Erdtree, Paper Mario the Origami King, Thousand Year Door My Beloved. That's all I'm gonna list, but you get the idea. I did play and enjoy all of those this year, but pretty much anything I played on my channel this year could theoretically be an honorable mention, but I'm too lazy to list literally everything. The most I'd add is Thousand Year Door is technically my game of the year because it's my favorite game of all time, but that's boring, so let's just pretend that doesn't exist. Anyways, on to the real list.
Number 5.
Okay, hear me out. You are quickly going to find out while watching this video that I didn't play any of the Game Awards nominees, except for the aforementioned Shadow of the Erdtree, but that doesn't count, Jeff! This year, I made 2 videos where I played The Amazing Spider-Man, yes, the PS3 game, but I specifically played the 3DS port. And I am being 100% serious when I say not only do I think this game is really good, I actually think it does some stuff better than the PS4 and PS5 games. Now don't get me wrong, 90% of this game's appeal is making fun of how stupid it is. But this game's rogues gallery is hilarious. Yeah, the PS4 game has relatively comic-accurate versions of a ton of iconic Spider-Man villains, but the 3DS game has giant mechs that you throw missiles at, and you team up with the Lizard to kill a disabled man. This is one of the stupidest versions of Spider-Man ever, and the majority of this game's appeal is due to it looking like this. But The Amazing Spider-Man 3DS is a sleeper hit, and I will defend it with my life. I also just appreciate different takes on well-known universes. The Amazing Spider-Man is to Spider-Man what Shadow Labyrinth is to Pac-Man, and I adore that that is a real sentence that just left my mouth.
Number 4.
Lethal Company is simultaneously the scariest game of the year when played alone and the funniest game of the year when played with friends. My only issue with this game is I don't really like horror games that much, and I don't have any friends. It's been months since I've been able to really enjoy this game, but scheduling play sessions is actually impossible. I turned it on once like 4 months ago when they added cars. God, this game is funny. But that's all I messed with before turning it off again. Honestly, best game of the year when I can play it, but the skill floor is just too damn high! And the annoying part is, that's not the game's fault. The only thing stopping this game from being higher on the list is my poor time management. But nothing can be done about that, so I guess it's number 4.
Number 3.
IGN was wrong? Okay, they were mostly right. Let's start with positives, okay? This one's gonna get me some hate, but when it comes to art style, I adore the way this game looks, and the 3D models look way better than the sprites. The combat is the most fun it has ever been in this series, and I know we just got Bowser's Inside Story remake a few years ago, but a Bowser's Inside Story remake from the ground up with this game's improvements to the series would be incredible. However, this is a 15-hour game pretending to be a 40-hour game. So spoiler warning, skip to this time to avoid spoilers. There's this part about 2/3 of the way through the game where you confront the final boss. And then after a phenomenal boss fight against a possessed version of Bowser, you get kicked all the way back to the overworld, and then you do another final dungeon, have a fight against the main antagonist, and then you get kicked out to the overworld again and have to do a multiple hour-long fetch quest, then do a third final dungeon, sit through a somewhat cool but mostly annoying set piece over and over and over again, and then fight the most anticlimactic boss in the entire series. So yeah, that fell off pretty quick. Alright, here's how I would have done it. First and foremost, I would have had one final dungeon. Bowser shows up, tries to fight the main bad guy, but gets defeated. Now, Mario and Luigi have to fight against the main bad guy. In the middle of the fight, the egg hatches an evil spirit. The spirit possesses Bowser. Bowser defeats the main bad guy. And listen closely to this part, devs, put all of your resources into this Bowser fight to make it the coolest thing ever. That way, the game ends on a high note. But that's not what they did. This game is kind of weird, and it almost feels weird to put it this high, but just off of vibes alone, I definitely think it deserves to be this high. The good parts are the best in the series, but the bad parts are the worst in the series. Not a masterpiece, but also definitely not a 5 out of 10. The best way I would describe this game is divisive, so you might want to wait until you can get a better deal on the game, whether you buy a used or if Nintendo decides to make it cheaper for some reason. then it's honestly worth trying at the very least. It's a shame the series is probably dead again.
Number 2.
Sonic Mania 2 released this year and nobody cared. When they were marketing Penny's Big Breakaway as made by the Sonic Mania devs, I was like, heh, yeah, funny marketing strategy. But after playing the game, yeah, it's literally just 3D Sonic Mania. To me, this game feels like the first ever 3D Sonic game if it retained gameplay philosophies from the first 4 games. Going off of gameplay alone, this definitely isn't the most polished platformer of the year, but it's probably the most fun platformer that I played. I still haven't played Astrobot. The bright and bouncy art style, the amazing soundtrack, the incredibly satisfying momentum, it's all classic Sonic stuff, but 3D. I think my favorite part of this game is that it never really falls off. Like, there's not that one level that you just hate. It's all just kinda great, start to finish. There are definitely times when you're playing the main campaign where you're like, oh, this level is kinda bad. But when you go back and are playing through all the levels again, you notice that they're all just equally amazing. You didn't struggle with a level because it's bad. You struggled with that level because you're bad at the specific gimmick it operates on. Once you learn that gimmick, it's equally as good as the other levels. But it's still not number 1 because you can do this.
Number 1.
When I was playing Shadow Generations, I was thinking, you know, the 2D levels kinda suck, but the 3D stuff is phenomenal! Now that I've had much more time to mess around in the game, the 2D levels are phenomenal too, the music is just ass! Here's Kingdom Valley Act 2. And here's Kingdom Valley Act 2 with Green Light Ride in the background. Now, does a rock song about racing really match the vibe of a destroyed kingdom? No. This game even fixed things that I was the only person who bitched about. Listen, Frontier's bosses were great, but none of the bosses feel Sonic-y. All of the Titans look so generic, except kind of Wyvern. But like, if I type futuristic robot into an AI, it spits out Giganto. And I get the sharp edges are meant to contrast the more rounded off designs of Eggman's robots, but I just don't feel like I'm playing a Sonic game when I fight Frontier's enemies. Thankfully, Shadow Generations has Generations in the title, so it can just reuse better designs from older games and give these old amazing designs new modernized boss fights. Holy shit, I said that first try. I was looking at that sentence in my script, it was a goddamn tongue twister, I don't know how I did that. Whether or not Sonic Team is still capable of making enemy design as perfect looking as the hero's egg pawn, or a set piece as iconic as the Ark is still yet to be seen. I mean, let's be real, Frontier's kind of willingly tapped out on doing all of those ideas. But as far as gameplay innovation, controls, level design, animation quality, boss design, and the biggest improvement, story, they nailed it with this one. Shadow Generations gets a 10 out of 10 from me, and wins the prestigious Random Users Game of the Year award. But again, that's only if we pretend Thousand Year Door doesn't exist.